Have you ever heard the sentiment that exploration in Star Citizen will be dead on arrival? The idea being there aren't any undiscovered star systems, so there's nothing for players to discover. For starters, we don't know if there aren't undiscovered systems, but also this is absolutely not true, and just not a great view of what exploration is. I've covered this a few times in the past, but I think we have enough tangible proof now, from transient jump points to resource quality and unique placement to unlisted points of interest, to the new resource gathering missions. Then there's also things like the lawless planetary warfare that depends on org-based position. There are plenty of reasons exploration will be a big part of Star Citizen, and basically every single person in the game is going to take part in it in some way. So in this latest supporter exclusive video releasing in March, we're going to talk about the core aspects of good exploration in any game, and look at all the ways you'll be able to experience it in Star Citizen. This is my opinion, understanding, and speculation based on what I've seen, read, and know of the current game, how exploration can live and thrive in Star Citizen as a profession, and how it can also be something that drives just about every other part of Star Citizen at the same time. At the very least, hopefully this gets you interested in some new gameplay. And no, it's not coming soon, it's just coming in the future. To all Patreon, Twitch, and YouTube supporters making this possible, thank you all so much for supporting my Tomato Talks. The first and most important pillar of exploration, especially in a multiplayer game, is hidden value. In Star Citizen, a lot of space has been surveyed, nowhere near all of it, but a lot of it. And finding new star systems and stellar phenomena might not be the norm, but you need to get that feeling like you have found something others at the very least haven't exploited yet. And creating valuable locations, items, and assets can generate that same feeling. This is why we're seeing more and more commodities and resources added to the game, like just now in 4.1. It's why resource quality is becoming a thing. It's why we've seen so much development on caves, rivers, lakes, derelicts, ships, outposts, and ruins over the years. With the right assets and the right tools, and all the different atmospheres available to us, these locations can be populated with loot, stories, and NPCs that make every different one feel a little bit unique. And then there are the transient jump points, the big baddies of exploration, a useful second entrance into any other star system that is unmonitored and unsecure. Folks are definitely going to pay good money for these, and I don't know how common it's going to be to find one, but these will act as a very powerful hidden value in the game and a pretty big part of exploration overall. In fact, this might be the peak discovery in the game. But these locations and pieces of hidden value can't just be made available to you immediately. If every point of interest remains mapped in the game, exploration dies and curiosity withers. And honestly, it's really weird the way it looks right now when you can just find gang hideouts and drug bases marked on public maps. I mean, pick your open world game from the last 10 years. How bad did minimaps and compasses get, overwhelming the curious and completely turning off the ambivalent? Star Citizen already had this problem, and it was remedied a little bit in 3.23 with less icons popping up around the screen, but ultimately they need to wipe the slate clean, only giving us access to certain points of interest until we discover the information revealing more locations. But we'll get to that in a little bit. To close out this point of hidden value and dynamic changing situations causing that hidden value, I'd like to give an example of one of my favorite ideas for exploration: comets. A recurring event that happens maybe twice a year, something that very few games can actually simulate, would be the literal distance a comet travels on its journey. Have this object loop around star systems as they normally would, something the size of, say, Delamar, slowly regenerating resources as nobody lands on the comet over the time that it's away from the star system, and then as it turns back towards the system, tempting the most daring explorers to make a mad quantum dash out into the black to see who can land on this piece of land first. Obviously, you'd have some people who try to camp out for the entire trip around, and who knows if that's even possible for CIG to support. But I think this could be a really fun thing for explorers to get involved in. Of course, different resources would spawn on the comet as it gets closer to the star, maybe with ice melting away, but ultimately giving some of the explorers who couldn't make that far trip out still a chance to get some of the goods from this comet as it comes closer to the system. And then there would be the ability to build structures on its surface, creating an economic anomaly and reasons for other players to travel there, like traders or miners, as it gets closer to some of the planets in the inner star system. More and more explorers would feel comfortable making the trip as it gets closer, which gives us the ability to scale an event like this for both very advanced and more of the newcomer crowd. This, in my opinion, is just one way we could see dynamic, recurring, and evolving discoveries in the exact same spaces over and over again without having to depend on big discoveries of planets and star systems like some other games I think are more well suited for. The second part of a great exploration loop is the commoditization of data. What I mean by this is data needs to be a tangible object in the game, not necessarily physical like a credit chip, but tradable, archivable, transferable. Data should basically be a digital box of some commodity, which value changes based on a series of variables like how widely available the data is, how many data points are included, or what star system it comes from. These are things that have been covered in CitizenCons in the past when talking about base building and exploration, but they still haven't come to fruition. But for example, take a planetary surveyor, the player who loves exploration but mainly for the great views and the industrial sales. This player may take missions from the nearby comm array or central station. They're tasked with scanning a nearby moon in different sections and turning the data back into a faction, something we saw on the Science Guild page at recent CitizenCon, so this will in some way be a job prospect in the future. Every contract that you turn in pays out basically the same amount, but it'll be reliable work for the explorer out in the small system. And just like in every profession, this data being a commodity blows the possibilities up. Instead of turning that data back into the station when you're done with it, the player could capitalize on it themselves, taking the salvage, mining the deposit, or raiding the pirate outpost. Maybe instead of taking the data back to the station, you pass it off to your org, sell it off to a fence, or give it to your industrial division. It's hard to know how CIG can handle this, as with a commodity contract, it's pretty easy to know you've sold off the box to somebody else, but with data, it might be a little bit more difficult. Not sure how they'll handle it, but it is the direction it's headed in. It's a tall order, and likely not realistic in its entirety, but I think this is a goal to shoot for in any game focusing on building exploration into the game as a core. It can't be auxiliary, it can't be part of the game. It must be something that, just like cargo boxes, people are forced to use so that it becomes a regularity, and we'll get into that in a second. But function, trade, discovery, and progress needs to depend on these mechanics. If you can make information and how we find it something that players care about, then it's another tool for more content, more interaction between players, and more choices to be made. As much as I see complaints about players being forced into gameplay they don't want, PvP, multiplayer, combat-focused, Star Citizen in general, exploration is the one gameplay I would say all players probably should be forced into. I'm being a bit pedantic here, but even finding your way through the starting city is some level of exploration. My point is, exploration is the act of traveling, finding, and sometimes recording data. You could just be a tour boat offering great sights in a nearby nebula, a miner finding the highest quality deposits in an asteroid belt, or a scavenger picking through the remnants of a recent skirmish. Every single one of these applications requires pinging, scanning, identifying targets, and making decisions. Whether you are long-distance probing with a Carrack, quantum boosting to nearby points of interest in a Gladius, or scanning a trade route with your Terrapin, the mechanics you use should, for the most part, just be more in-depth versions or derivatives of everyday casual mechanics. Exploration is just a series of locations you can find and exploit for any number of reasons, but it's also a toolset made up from various mechanics we've been watching slowly be built over the years. Even the creation of Quantum Boost is a very important distinction from the much faster quantum travel and the typical speeds we're flying at, meant to emphasize mid-distance exploration in any direction you want. These tools should function naturally in the exploration game loop, rewarding you for making use of them in locations that other players may have just never decided to look, or were never able to survive long enough to see. And that brings in other things like the amount of suits your ship can carry, what kind of atmosphere your ship is able to withstand, how much life support you have to go a certain distance. There are many limiting factors that are forced on all players throughout the game that will enhance the exploration game loop. Even the idea of a fuel tank and the amount of power you need to keep your ship running is going to dictate who might have the best chance at hitting an exploration milestone. You may be down in a cave looking for a pirate outpost, but the cheeky player that brings a laser and scans for minerals may be extra rewarded for their diligence, as opposed to the person who just gets the bounty. And with different types of scanners planned at least for ships, there's a chance you can specialize even further into the profession to find certain things when you're out and about. If there's going to be longevity in the profession, especially in Star Citizen's unique situation, I think there needs to be more consistent rewards for deep engagement, giving back to the players who go the extra mile in those situations. We should occasionally come across distress beacons as we venture off the trade lanes, finding smuggling routes into cities when we explore their perimeters, and finding that lost, crashed ship filled with valuables after scouring the planet's surface. Players who recognize signatures organically should be able to identify their target faster. EVAing into a ship after disabling it should offer the chance to meet a useful NPC or some good loot, rather than just a face on your MFD. And taking time to talk to a dying pirate maybe can get you some coordinates to a cache somewhere else. Obviously, you can't give somebody something every single time they go out and look for it, but those things should at least exist, so that players know there's still a reason to go out and try looking for it. They aren't dumb. Players can find out pretty quick whether or not a game is actually going to reward you for searching every corner of a room or not. The more effort you put into exploration, the more rewarding it should be. Above all else, and if it wasn't clear, exploration needs to be enjoyable at all levels. From simple scans of the apartment you woke up in, to tracking down a bounty's trail in the depths of a more seedy star system. The mechanics that drive this gameplay should come and go as you progress through various parts of the game, involving everybody in their own way. But it should provide a deeper experience for dedicated players who thrive in the very definition of exploration gameplay. The folks working through the science guild that we saw in the plans for Star Citizen 1.0. This profession is not just about finding planets or discovering star systems or even charting the first path to a new anomaly. Yes, you can find temporary jump points to different star systems, but true scalable exploration doesn't start there. It gives you feelings of curiosity all the way from step one and provides dynamic, rewarding, and tangible mechanics to keep you engaged long term. Uncovering hidden value where others have missed it, deciding what to do with the data you've gained, and mastering the mechanics behind travel are the three main keys behind building good exploration. And in my opinion, Star Citizen has not really proven that they're going to do these things. The jury is still out on whether it will work. But I do see the different signs, tools, and directions they're going to try and make this a possibility, and I hope they can hit that goal. I don't know when these tools and key points and advancements are going to enter the game, or when they will have an outlying effect on the game. But from new collection missions, to upcoming planet tech advancements, to mission givers and factions focused on exploration, it's clear they're at least trying. Stay tuned here if you want more updates on when that does happen, as I'll be covering exploration and data running thoroughly on this channel and Space Tomato 2. And if you've enjoyed this video, you can subscribe for more, and maybe even become a member to see more like these right when they are published. This video was released in March to all supporters on Patreon, Twitch, and YouTube, and you'll get behind the scenes updates, live podcast access, and some Discord perks as well if you join. Either way, thank you for watching this until the end. I hope you learned something new, and I'll catch you in the next.